Welcome back to the United Pubcast. Manchester United through to the fifth round of the FA Cup with a very easy victory over Reading in the FA Cup at Old Trafford, which was great to see. Obviously, I'm not sure when the draw is for the next stage, but obviously we've got another cup final, not a cup final, but another cup to look forward to during the week against Nottingham Forest, which we'll have a little bit look later on in the show. But Larry's back with me, which is great to see. And also, look, at the end of the day, Larry, Manchester United win football matches at home comfortably at Old Trafford. It feels like the days when I was growing up. So, good time to be a Red. Erik ten Hag, again, working miracles. Now, we've got to get in a team selection if it was the right thing or wrong thing. I made my feelings pretty clear at the start of the week that I thought it was the right thing to do. But obviously now we've got more information with maybe one or two injuries and fitness issues. We're starting to look at the thing, or maybe it was the wrong thing. So we'll dissect all the things, team selection and Erik ten Hag in a little bit. But ultimately, Larry, Manchester United winning football matches is a good thing.
Yeah, have to agree with that, Tom. Look, it's a really difficult one. In terms of the squad selection, I said to you, very strong lineup for the FA Cup. Do I have an issue with that in isolation? No, I don't. But the reality is Manchester United are competing in 4 competitions. Now, in terms of what does competing mean when we're talking about the league? Well, fighting for top 4 is still fighting in the competition. United need to finish in the top 4. They need to secure Champions League. We know that. So if we know that, how bad will this hurt? Obviously, we'll rip into Eriksen's injury, so that's to come. So make sure you do stay tuned. But was this the right or wrong decision? Well, time will tell.
Well, we'll get into that because I think that is the main discussion. Obviously, at the end of the day, 3-1 against Reading, pretty standard at Old Trafford. You move on. I don't think anyone's going to remember this match in May. Whether we win trophies or don't win trophies, we're not going to be discussing this match. So we'll quickly breeze over the match. We'll do 3-2-1s. I think a lot of it does come down to that team selection and how we do move forward. But to say good day to some people in the live chat. A few people I did spend the morning with at Scruffy Murphy's. Good to see Matt. Good to see you, Matt, this morning. Obviously, very good chat watching the match. It was good. I was speaking to a few people at the pub. Rob was here as well. Good to see you. Look, you were there, Larry, like the other week against Manchester City. Crazy scenes. It was absolute chaos, which was brilliant. Absolutely loved it. But I also, sometimes these morning kickoffs at the pub in Sydney, it's good. Like, just sort of be able to relax, sit down, sort of have a coffee, or I don't have a coffee, but other people do. And sort of the family, Steve here, good to see he travelled up to Sydney. What a good evening. He brought his family along. So it is good to just sort of sit in a relaxed environment, watching the football, discussing with mates. Now, obviously, Manchester United winning makes that a lot easier. If we're 1-0 down, it might not have been a good morning. But it was good to see everyone this morning at the pub. Sully, good to see you, mate, as always. And Ian over from Perth, I'm loving the Wayne Rooney piece of art behind you. So, look, team selection first. I called it before the game. I thought it was the right thing to do. I understood all the criticisms, and they're valid. But I thought ultimately, if you don't play them in this game, if you rest people 2 games in a row, how sharp are they for the next match? I think the next league game is Crystal Palace. So I thought, no, give them another game, then you give them the full week off. Now, I understand, okay, risk of injury, which obviously is the case with Christian Eriksen. But I thought, no, play him again and play none of them against Nottingham Forest, because ultimately, against Nottingham Forest, we're 3-0 up. Okay, today, if we played a rotated team and suddenly you go 1-0 down, the game starts at 0-0. If you go 1-0 down, you're in a little bit of trouble in terms of the future of the competition. So I thought, go full strength, get the job done, and rest everyone against Nottingham Forest when you're 3-0 up. You could almost play 6 or 7 kids in the Nottingham Forest game. You got that head start. You got that bit of a barrier. So I thought it was the right decision. I thought the right standards were set to go and win the game and sort of put in a positive display. Ultimately, though, the criticisms do come with we are running the squad into the ground, and ultimately one of our key players has picked up a potential injury. Obviously, unfortunately, left the ground on crutches. So just talk to me the pros and cons of the team selection and your thoughts around it.
The pros are Manchester United won the game and they proceed in the FA Cup. FA Cup, for me, is a big trophy. I know a lot of fans, particularly younger fans, don't see it that way, perhaps because of the emphasis on Champions League and securing top 4, etc. But FA Cup is such a major trophy, the longest standing trophy in world football. So when you actually conceptualize it like that, it's a big deal, right? The hard bit is obviously, like you said, we've got Nottingham Forest on Wednesday, and Nottingham Forest, I think, will be a rotated side, undoubtedly. I mean, the tie is Manchester United would need to have a fall off the cliff to, no pun intended. Seriously, every 11 players need to go out there and need to have something, a bet with Sportsbet to say, we're going to match fix today in order to lose to Nottingham Forest 4-0, okay? We're asking a lot for that to happen. So Ten Hag can pretty much play a rested side, a rotated side midweek. So I can sort of understand why he went for a stronger lineup. The other side of the argument is It's early rounds in the FA Cup. If it's not your priority, rotate the side. I think Ten Hag showed his intentions here. The FA Cup is absolutely a trophy he wants to win. I think that's crystal clear. So if that's the case, credit to Erik Ten Hag. The risk now, though, is Christian Eriksen. Tom, let me ask you this. Is there any player in our squad who can fulfill what Eriksen brings to the Manchester United team? Because this isn't a case of simply losing a midfielder, losing a striker. The other day, we went through 4 names that we said we cannot lose this season. We said Rafael Varane, Casemiro, Rashford. Was there one other one? Maybe it was those 3, actually. Nonetheless,
He's in that discussion. He is in that discussion. I think we maybe lazily, or for lack of a better term, just underestimated Eriksen, because who replaces him in the team? I think ultimately now, with the evidence we have at his Manchester United career, the answer is absolutely not. And obviously injury plays a key factor in this at the moment. But if you prime Donny van de Beek slips in there. Obviously his time at Manchester United says he can't perform like that. And obviously, unfortunately, he's injured. So yes, you do go through the midfield situation at the moment. And there is no one to do that. You mentioned a little bit off air, and maybe Bruno Fernandes can drop a little bit deeper, which he has done a little bit this season. But ultimately, then who plays that number 10 role? Just as light there in terms of who's the next number 10. Maybe if Facundo Pellistri, can Pellistri take his chance? Maybe a goal against Nottingham Forest midweek potentially sort of alter Erik Ten Hag's thinking. But yes, extremely thin there. Scott McTominay's picked up a bit of a niggle, it does look like now as well. So suddenly Bruno Fernandes, Fred and Casemiro are only 3 fit midfielders. And ultimately, none of those 3. Maybe Fred gets 90 minutes against Nottingham Forest. I'd assume that will probably happen now. But it is light on. It's very light in midfield now. And ultimately, the qualities that Christian Eriksen brings, we're going to get in the 3-2-1s. And I've got the current sort of leaderboard so we can have a look at how people are faring this season when we get to 3-2-1s. And ultimately, he's had a brilliant season. Has gone under the radar. We're going to talk about Casemiro in a sec. But Christian Eriksen, what a signing he has been. But the point you made a little bit earlier in regards to priority, in regards to the way we view top 4 and the FA Cup at the moment, Matt brings up a point here in regards to all competitions have a trophy, all divisions are a priority. The reason I think this is increased in priority for Erik Ten Hag, like the League Cup in terms of you see teams fall out. You look at the FA Cup now, Arsenal's out, Chelsea's out. I think there's another big team out somewhere sort of thing. I forget who it is, but ultimately one or two teams
still in the FA Cup.
I think Liverpool have Brighton. Which you think at the moment you think Brighton are probably going to beat them. So ultimately Liverpool will fall out at some stage as well, you'd think. And ultimately, if those teams are dropping out, like the League Cup, we might just find ourselves in a position where we end up by the quarterfinals, semi-finals. So ultimately now we're so far away from Wembley, the FA Cup Wembley, not the League Cup Wembley. But ultimately, Erik Ten Hag, what do you think he views in regards to trophies and top 4? If he had to pick 2 trophies or no trophies in top 4, yeah. Ultimately, yes, there is a valid case in terms of, okay, the argument is Champions League, go get that money, go sort of give yourself the platform to grow as a club. But ultimately, in regards to winning things and sort of getting things off the right foot as a Manchester United manager, there is a very strong case, and one that I deep down probably not many people agree with me, but I think deep down it would be better to have 2 trophies under your belt.
Oh, of course. I mean, more trophies, the better. And it's about building a winning culture. I think that's what's eluded Manchester United post Sir Alex Ferguson, really. So the more players in this current squad that can win trophies, it becomes a habit, it becomes a culture. And then you add into that players who have either won trophies, then obviously that adds to that culture. Or if you're bringing in younger players, you're bringing them into a winning culture. So there is a lot of benefit into winning trophies or fighting for trophies on multiple fronts. And I agree with Emad's comments in principle. However, while every competition is an opportunity for a trophy, there has to be a priority. Like you and I made this point before. Louis van Gaal won an FA Cup. He was sacked the same day. So, I mean, winning the FA Cup, unfortunately, doesn't secure you in terms of importance. Champions League is the priority.
Look, I 100% agree, especially sort of that example. But ultimately, different time, different management. What Erik Ten Hag is doing is different. Now, we both said maybe Louis van Gaal potentially deserved maybe more time. That's up for debate for another day. But Erik Ten Hag, if he was to finish 5th or 6th and win the FA Cup on the last day, that would have a different feel to what the feeling was under Louis van Gaal when he's going up those steps.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really valid point. I think if I was given the choice of prioritization, it would be FA Cup, League Cup, secure top 4. I think that's the right way to go about it. Europa League, for me, it's a second-tier competition. At the end of the day, some might view it as a European trophy. I personally view it as it's second tier. You are not versing the best of the best available. Therefore, who really cares?
We're playing the best in Spain next.
We are playing the best in Spain because they dropped out of the Premier competition, right? And like fundamentally, this is the issue in me with the Europa League. It was enjoyable, obviously, in Stockholm in 2017, but that was different circumstances. I think if you're talking about prioritization, that trophy was important because United finished sixth, and I think people forget that. If United are in a prime position to finish in the top four, and I think that absolutely has to be the priority. That being said, if we're securing top four, give me an FA Cup trophy all day long.
Look, it's about trophies for me, but ultimately I think Erik ten Hag's going to have more than trophies. I think he's building something special. Trophies will come along with that, and with that, will come higher up the table. So if you are happy with Erik ten Hag, please do leave a like on the video. And for the next player, you will have to leave a like on the video.
I want to ask you a question. The Christian Eriksen injury, let's go back to that a little bit. So let's assume, if you believe reports, United don't really have a lot of dough to spend in this transfer window. So with that being said, answer this question for me. Kobbie Mainoo, Zidane Iqbal, someone else, who do you think is the most in a position to replace what Eriksen does in the side?
The skill set, you'd say Zidane Iqbal, from just a visual on how you see the two players play. Zidane Iqbal is quite similar to Christian Eriksen in regards to the way they move the ball, body shape, everything. That's an obvious comparison. But if you look at the pecking order, he's playing under 21 and Kobbie Mainoo's coming off the bench at Old Trafford for the first team. So at the moment, Kobbie Mainoo's above him in the pecking order. I expect Kobbie Mainoo to start against Nottingham Forest in the League Cup. That'll be his second start for the season, which is huge for a 17-year-old. So ultimately, I'd like to see Zidane Iqbal given a chance, but ultimately, Erik ten Hag potentially sees something in Kobbie Mainoo. Adam here saying Iqbal is not ready. And look, I don't know if I agree or disagree. I just haven't seen the evidence of him in first-team football yet. So, but ultimately, for a 17-year-old to be doing what Kobbie Mainoo is doing, and we'll get in, he's not in 3-2-1s, but I'm sure his name will pop up in regards to the job he did in the Nottingham Forest preview later on. But ultimately, I think he's the one who maybe Erik ten Hag now plays the game in a different way to Eriksen. He's not going to come in and dictate play, but maybe just in that box-to-box role, he will be that next cab off the rank. And look, you'd love to see it. We do want to see that. At the moment, it's Garnacho, that youth player, but he's almost established himself as a squad option now. We're almost sort of selfish and Man Utd. Who's the next one? Who's the next youth player? And hopefully it is potentially Iqbal or Kobbie Mainoo. Obviously, Charlie Savage got the move to Forest Green Rovers. Good luck to him for the rest of the season. I think that all the best to him. I think that might be his time done at United. It'd be hard for him to get back into the first team at Manchester United now, but fingers crossed a strong finish to the season, because obviously Hannibal's doing very well. I think he got a late assist in the FA Cup this morning for Birmingham. But at the moment, I think Kobbie Mainoo has a huge chance against Forest midweek. If Zidane Iqbal can get involved in the matchday squad, fingers crossed he can take that chance. But time will tell. Fingers crossed Eriksen's back soon, but who knows. But you were discussing earlier about Champions League and trophies. Please leave a like for this person on the video, please. Casemiro. The discussion has to end. I was mentioning this at the pub to people. The discussion has to end about him being in this Thomas Partey debate or the best defensive midfielder in the league. That has to end. The discussion now simply is, not even an argument, is this a debate? The discussion now has to be factual. He's the best midfielder in the Premier League.
I hate this term, defensive midfielder. Can I be honest with you, Tom? I think this all started with FIFA. This defensive midfielder, attacking midfielder.
When kids at school, Cam?
Oh my gosh.
It was almost detention territory for me.
Look, in 1999, no one said Roy Keane was the best defensive midfielder in the world. They said he was the best midfielder in the world. When people spoke about Scholes, Gerrard, Lampard, no one said, oh, those two are Cams and Scholes is a number, deep-lying midfielder or whatever. It was about, you're a midfielder, you play in the heart of the pitch, that's your position. In terms of where you contribute the best, whatever, that's up to you. I agree with you 100%. This isn't defensive midfielder, Cam, central midfielder, CM, whatever you want to call it. He is the best midfielder in the world at the moment. I think he's the most complete. If you're talking to me about, with the ball at their feet, passing range, etc., Kevin De Bruyne undoubtedly, right? His assists speak to that. But Casemiro can give you something in every aspect of the game. Defensively, I mean, United have kept the most amount, second best clean sheets in Europe, I think it is.
I'm not sure what it is, but there's a visible difference when he's on the pitch defensively.
Highly up there, okay? Highly up there. So you can't doubt his defensive qualities, his intensity. He covers a large amount of territory every game. So defensively, he's brilliant. Intellectually, obviously, his positional play is accounted for. His passing range is phenomenal. He's not quite Michael Carrick level, but it's bloody world class. He's put wonderful balls through time and time again this season. And then you see today, goal scorer. The guy's got
He shouldn't have a finish like that in his locker. He shouldn't be able to finish like that. Plays like, and I'm just saying how good he is, but central mid, that's a striker's finish. That's Ruud van Nistelrooy. That's Thierry Henry.
In the World Cup, he scored a brilliant goal for Brazil as well.
Oh yeah, but just the finesse of, as I say, a defensive midfielder. When you sort of your first instinct is this defensive type player. For him to be in on goal and just delicately dink it over the goalkeeper, just unbelievable. This comment here from Stephen. Casemiro is an all-rounder, proved it today, 100%. Just on that in regards to that, and I know Stephen's not saying this in regards to this context, but proved it today. Have we been shown up as Man United fans in regards to, I don't know, not our knowledge of the game, but sort of our holistic approach to it, sort of watching football? Here we are saying Casemiro, how good he is against Reading in the Premier League. He's been doing this for 5 or 6 years in Real Madrid and for Brazil, winning this on the biggest stage in the Champions League. I'm just thinking, have we underestimated what a player he is? At Real Madrid, it was Gareth Bale, it was Ronaldo, it was Modric, it was Toni Kroos, it was Benzema, it was Sergio Ramos, it was Marcelo. Casemiro's name was never there. He was always the first name on the team sheet in terms of manager at Real Madrid, but he was never discussed in this vein. But now we're seeing him week in, week out. Do we go back and look at the greats over the last decade? Sergio Ramos is the best defender of the last decade. Ronaldo and Messi, they're the best forwards. Do we look at it now in terms of seeing what he obviously is doing for Manchester United? He's obviously done for 5 years, 6 years at Real Madrid, and he goes down as sort of one of these sort of generational sort of greatest midfielders, not greatest midfielder of all time, but sort of his generation in that discussion.
Yeah, it's really interesting with the Real Madrid thing. I think it's a case of, Luka Modric, I thought he was brilliant at Tottenham, and there was a period where he was linked strongly with Manchester United at the time. And obviously he ended up going to Tottenham. I don't know if United actually had any concrete interest, but when you look at what Modric and Kroos have done in the game, what's the term I'm looking for? I think when you're a fan, you're more attracted to those who are brilliant on the ball. Okay, and that's not to say Casemiro is not brilliant on the ball, but when you look at what those two players in particular offer a football team, I can understand why Casemiro's game was probably simplified to break up, play, give it to these two magicians on the ball. But what we're seeing from him at Manchester United is a license, an opportunity to be more creative. So I'm kind of happy for Casemiro. Something that isn't going to be talked about on other fan channels, so this is why you should subscribe to the United podcast. But genuinely, Tom, the thing that can't be understated about Casemiro, the way he celebrated Champions League trophy wins and the way he celebrates his goals scoring in the 4th round of the FA Cup. This guy loves United. He's relishing.
Could you imagine the celebrations? Could you imagine what he does if he scores at Wembley against Newcastle?
Shirts off. He's running through the whole stadium. He's taking the away travel with him. He's going back on the bed.
That is the thing. I'm sure everyone, I watched about 700 times that footage of him in the Manchester derby going in and sort of hugging those kids. He does have a genuine... And look, go back and watch the tapes. When Casemiro signed, yes, we welcome the sign thing. That's great. What a great player. All of us sat here, myself included, said, why is he coming to United? Is he coming for one last pay packet? Why Real Madrid getting rid of him? While we were excited, we also had huge question marks over the desire of Casemiro to come to United. Why is he here? Ultimately, he's answered all those questions and has been absolutely brilliant. Casemiro is world class. Matt, if there's not a Casemiro chant, there needs to be 100% Old Trafford need to get on top of that. And so here, what a player Casemiro's best signing post Fergie. I agree with that. I would have to have a bit of a think about it, but off the top of my head, you look at what he's doing, you'd be in that discussion.
Yeah, 100%. Best signing post Fergie. Too early to say, but he's definitely on the way. I think the best signing post Fergie right now has to be Bruno, because I just think Bruno's been here longer and probably produced a bit more. But based on pure time, Casemiro's impact, if you look at his 6 months versus Bruno's first 6 months, it's pretty comparable, isn't it?
Well, before we get into 3-2-1s, I'm sure Casemiro's name will pop up there. Is there anything in and around the match, any talking points, moments that you want to discuss before we get into 3-2-1s?
His name might pop up in 3-2-1s, but I've been hard on Antony at times this season, and I'll say rightfully so. I think it's been justified. I don't think I've been over the top in my criticisms. I've always said he's young, he needs time, and I maintain that. Positive steps today. Looks dangerous.
What say with Antony? And it's sort of sometimes when you make a prediction or you have a view and it sort of comes true, you sort of feel good. I think it's a natural sort of instinct, and I think so much of our frustrations toward Antony has been sort of in these visible moments where he's sort of on a breakaway. You want him to be quicker, and a defender sort of outpaces him, you think, he needs to do more there. But that comes in a real counter-attack sort of setting in terms of breaking away, trying to use your pace. So it's very sort of isolated incidents in game. But I go back to what Erik ten Hag, sort of vision what Erik ten Hag wants to play like in 3 or 4 years, was sort of what his Ajax team were doing in the Eredivisie in terms of dominating possession. This was a game today which very much looked, maybe not to the highest of quality, very much looked in terms of the way a game will play out. Manchester United camped in the opposition's half because Reading were really parking the bus. And what parking the bus did to Antony was sort of open up that space. He didn't have that space to run into behind. He'd have to cut inside and sort of link up play. And I think that sort of, with the overlapping fullback, you'd hope maybe on a better day it'll be Diego Dalot overlapping on the right-hand side. But instead of him being forced to dribble past a player to get a cross in, that wasn't the option because Reading were playing 3 centre-backs. Even though we had a big horse up front, you're not going to cross to 3 centre-backs and 1 player. So he wasn't getting to the line and crossing. He was having to come in and link up. You saw the goal. That's where the goal came from. So I think in regards to that is why I think Erik ten Hag will stick with Antony, because in 3 or 4 years, if Manchester United develop the way Erik ten Hag wants to, it'll end up in the final product like Ajax was, and Antony was a key part of that Ajax team. So that's what I think he has the vision for Antony. But I'll go back to there. I do think Antony was very good. I'm sure his name will pop up in the 3-2-1s. Before we get into the 3-2-1s, I'll throw up a ticker banner on the bottom. There's a lot of players. I think Harry Maguire has a point from the start of the season. I think even Ronaldo has a point from the Everton game. So I don't have all the players' names, but I have the top 5 in regards to the 3-2-1s. And if no one's familiar with our 3-2-1s vote, if you're new to the podcast, we give every match, win, lose, or draw, a 3-2-1 match, man of the match sort of voting system. And we tally up the points for the whole season, and the winner will be the Pubcast Player of the Year. 3 point, and it's not always the man of the match. It's sometimes the person who has the biggest impact on the game and sort of the most sort of valuable player in regards to the game. So I'll bring up the top 5 players here, and as you can see, Marcus Rashford is in first place with 24 points, tied first with Lisandro Martinez. Christian Eriksen close behind on 20 points. Casemiro might sort of climb up the rankings today on 17 points, and surprisingly, 5th Garnacho's up there in 5th place. Larry.
Yeah, 3 point. It is tied at the top, but let's talk about this game because that. I think there's whoever misses out. You could make an argument it's actually a bit harsh. We still haven't spoken about the Rashford incident, by the way. Unlucky for me not to have his 10th consecutive goal at Old Trafford. To the letter of the law, correct, but frustrating nonetheless. Anyway, I don't want to.
To the letter of the law, no. To the letter of the law, no. It is a goal. Yes, in the way we view it, okay, you can understand why it's offside, but ultimately you go back to the way they ruled that Mo Salah goal in the FA Cup against Wolves the other week. For example, exactly the same situation, but even more sort of clear in regards to a direct pass to him and a defender clearly making a move and touching the ball, playing Salah onside, and this was clearly onside. I agree with Weghorst is technically offside in regards to where the ball is played, so in my sort of old school fashion, okay, I can understand offside, but the way they're interpreting the rule this year with that touch that plays him onside, obviously different rules at Old Trafford this year, it does seem. But back on the 3 points, Larry. For me, look, Antony, I think in regards to performance and the way the game panned out, I think he got the official man of the match. I would have him as the best player. Ultimately, though, Casemiro, 2 goals, no bigger impact on the match than Casemiro.
Amen, brother. Don't need to tell me twice. No, I'm with you 100%. The Brazilian midfielder, the best midfielder in the world, and the greatest amount of praise he'll get this week, 3 points on the United Pubcast.
Definitely. Jay here with I remember David De Gea used to run away with this. Was Miles Eddie. He's get 3 points every single week. I think voting was over by Christmas time, so it is a good change to have the points at the end of the pitch. So we'll go Casemiro 3 points. Stephen here with an interesting shout. I wouldn't go this far, Stephen, but an interesting shout. Casemiro, Wan-Bissaka for 2, who was good again, but ultimately I think there are a few plays there. Fred obviously came on and did very well. Fantastic goal by Fred, which we'll touch on if anyone brings him up for a point. But ultimately for me, I have to go Antony. I just think in the way the game played out, he got an assist for the...
He did get an assist.
For the first goal, Casemiro's goal. Go back and look at that. Go back, before we get into the points, go back and have a look at that goal if you haven't watched it in regards to so often over the last couple of years, the teams have had sort of struggled with at Old Trafford, the teams who can't break down. Low block, and it's very static. Okay, our strikers don't have that movement. We don't have that creativity to break through them. Go back and watch that goal, just in regards to the difference. It's so simple. There's nothing now. Maybe Erik ten Hag's played an absolute blinder and has drawn up this situation on the training ground, and the movement is deliberate. I don't think the movement is deliberate in regards to creating that situation. But just go and look at the simplicity of the movement. Bruno's in the number 9 position. Antony has the ball and he's cutting inside. Bruno's in the number 9 position. Bruno comes towards the ball. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is in the striker position as well. Aaron Wan-Bissaka moves out to the right. So suddenly 2 players vacate a little bit of space, and Casemiro sees that space, and Casemiro just runs straight into the space. Antony slides him through. Just go look at those three movements. Very simple, very sort of isolated, just simple movements. But the space it did create for Antony to play that pass, it was just so refreshing because we haven't had that movement of whoever the striker's been over the last couple of years. We just go back and watch the simplicity of it. Is brilliant in regards to they're just making a simple run. They're not doing anything. I don't think all the runs are sort of in sync in terms of the I'm going here because you're going there. They're just simply, okay, I'm in a position that I'm not going to get the ball. I'll move somewhere else. And suddenly you have three people moving at the same time. It is literally, it's going to open that space. So go back and watch that goal. Absolutely brilliant. But as I said there, Antony assist, 2 points for me.
Yeah, no argument from me, Tom. Look at us not arguing. Look, we're making progress in our relationship 3 years later. Well done. But no, in all seriousness, I agree with you, mate. I think full credit has to go to Antony. I thought really positive performance, and I hope he continues to build from here because I saw people saying after the Arsenal match when Thomas Partey accelerated and got like when you're a player trying to beat players running full throttle with a top speed, you're trying to process what's around you.
That photo did no favour. That photo did no favours. One, he's dribbling the ball. One, he's dribbling on an angle. Partey's running in a straight line, and Partey didn't have to control the ball. He was running already, so that photo did him no justice. Interesting. My internet drops out. Save the show, Larry. Hopefully it doesn't drop out. But a few people giving Wan-Bissaka a shout. In the show. Matt's there, Jay.
I didn't see it with Wan-Bissaka, I didn't see it.
I don't know. Look, a lot of people are shouting for him, so potentially, I'm willing to listen to people. If you're still in the live chat, do give me an opinion on why Wan-Bissaka's there. I'm willing to have my opinion changed. But ultimately, I thought Fred came on, did well. This is no points, and I agree here with Sully. Well, I don't agree with the point, but Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof, ultimately, in my opinion, not just discussing good enough for Manchester United or not, but ultimately, you rest your two centre-backs come in, did their job.
Not for me. I didn't think
is that performance really... is that performance any different with Martinez and Varane?
Yeah, but I would argue that has more to do with Casemiro in front of them.
But ultimately, but we want to give the night off. We want to give the night off to Martinez and Varane. You need people to come in and do a job.
Tom, I'm not the guy to give out points for free. There's a high scale.
No. I'm definitely not giving points. I'm definitely not giving points. But if it was another day, if Casemiro isn't world class, we're having another discussion. Maguire was at fault. Lindelof, they're the reason we haven't won the match.
Yeah, so give Casemiro the 3 points, which is what we're doing. But for me, I'd personally be going Fred. I liked what he brought off the bench. I won't argue with you for Wan-Bissaka. The thing that, while I understand the appreciation of Wan-Bissaka, the thing that frustrates me with him, his crosses don't have a clear target. I think he's crossing into the area and hoping for the best, as opposed to looking for someone to actually hit.
Yeah.
And that's what's a little bit frustrating for me.
When you've got Weghorst here, you can afford that sort of that floated ball in there. But Diogo Dalot does have that bit more of a shape to his cross. But look, I think we might be outvoted here, Larry. We don't often do this, but I think in terms of, I agree with Fred in regards. I think Fred got the assist for the second Casemiro goal as well. So assist and a goal and a brilliant finish by Fred. Turned into Brazilian again. So Fred is definitely getting into the Brazilian discussion as well. So look, I would be leaning to Fred, but look, everyone in the chat here is going Wan-Bissaka. So I think we might be outvoted here. Matt here, Aaron Wan-Bissaka link up with Antony. It maybe definitely benefit or contributed to the Antony performance as well. Stephen here, Wan-Bissaka was in the mix with Antony throughout the entire game. The right side was tight. Reading had much more space down the left. And Adam as well, 1 point for Wan-Bissaka or Fred for sure, leaning towards Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I think we'll go Casemiro, Antony, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Fred may be the unlucky Brazilian. It was a bit of Brazilian magic this morning, but I think we caved to the chat there.
Yeah, well, that's us, Tom. There wouldn't be a pubcast without the patrons in the pub. So, we like to be inclusive. If the majority say Wan-Bissaka, I'll roll with it.
No, definitely 3-2-1. So we'll go Casemiro, Antony, and Wan-Bissaka. Now, anything on the match before we do move on to sort of news in the future and start to wrap up?
No, I'm happy with it. It's short and sweet. I thought, good summary of the game. It's professional performances. That's been the biggest improvement this season and the greatest credit we can give Ten Hag. It's United are turning up against sides who are looking to frustrate us, but we're finding a way to break it down. Last season, this would have been a draw or a loss. So full credit to the Dutch.
That point there. I remember watching it this morning at the pub and thinking, if how many sort of banana skins have we had in recent seasons at Old Trafford at championship sides where you're sort of in fear of going to a replay, but ultimately just to rock up, perform, score a few goals, coast in the second half. ultimately that's what these matches should be. And we shouldn't be celebrating that because we're Manchester United at home to championship side Reading. That shouldn't be a cause for celebration. But ultimately, the position we've been in over the last couple of years, I think we kind of do have to enjoy it and to sort of give credit where it's due. Because ultimately, this group of players could have been, they were dishing up something different last season. So ultimately, they have turned it around. We do need to give them a lot of credit for it.
100%. So full credit, and I'm excited. Let's see what the second half of the season brings, because we're probably just past the halfway mark. There's still a whole lot more football to come, and I'm really excited about in 5 months' time, we could be talking about potential multiple trophies. We could be talking about top 4. Marcus Rashford might reach 30 goals for the first time in his career. There's lots of exciting things if you're a Manchester United fan to talk about at the moment.
Before we wrap up, main talking point from today. Andy Carroll, where do you want to start? First, the state of him. He looked like, I don't know what's happened to his career in terms of the way he looks, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, obviously an ex-Liverpool player, I don't care what he looks like, but the absolute state of him, but then the way he carried on the pitch, that tackle on Eriksen. So I want to talk about the tackle on Eriksen, the state of him, and also he wears number 2 up front. I think that is worthy of Reading potentially being deducted points.
It wasn't good. It was a bad tackle. And
but he's at it all night. He's at it the whole game. Like,
is that his fault or is that the referee's fault, though? I mean, I blame the referee ultimately. I think between VAR, between the referee on the pitch, the two touchies, like, come on, someone's got to say something at some point.
One of our players should have said something by going through him. Now, ultimately, we don't want that because then they get suspended and that you sort of can't play fire with fire. But I thought it was very unprofessional of Andy Carroll the way he's carrying on. He's asking for a red card. And ultimately, it was funny seeing him get sent off. Okay, good, we can have a laugh and he can get suspended. So that doesn't help Reading. That'll piss his coach off. But ultimately, I thought it was unprofessional. Every tackle, I was sort of, maybe he doesn't hit anyone. Ultimately, he does hit Christian Eriksen. And we're talking here about, okay, we're having a bit of a lighthearted discussion about Andy Carroll and how shit he is. But ultimately, that incident with Christian Eriksen could I don't want to say derail our season, but you don't know how things are going to play out. Maybe it does have a huge impact.
It has the potential to have a massive impact and a negative impact. But on Andy Carroll, let's say this. If you and I did a video tomorrow about the 5 footballers who are professionals and had no right, Andy Carroll would absolutely be top of that list. He's
he forms a strike partnership alongside Darwin Núñez.
Oh, yeah. And I would probably put Tyrone Mings in defence. How is Tyrone Mings a Premier League player? He's a donkey too. Baffles me. Darwin
Núñez is up there though. Like, Darwin Núñez and Andy Carroll, obviously Liverpool players, obviously he's left footers, a similar build, similar look. But ultimately, I think that would form a sort of, I don't want to say deadly front duo because it's anything but the case. But they'd form some type of duo up front.
They'd probably kick each other's shins looking for the ball.
That'd be one of those, like I was just sort of the other day, in terms of always pops up on your timeline occasionally. Newcastle, obviously Newcastle coming back into the fray. There's a bit of a relative subject, obviously. I could see Darwin Núñez and Andy Carroll, like Lee Bowyer and Kieran Dyer those years ago, starting a fight on the pitch. You could see them two at it, but which would be good to see. But look, speaking of Newcastle, hopefully, fingers crossed, we do have an important game at the end of the month against Newcastle. Also, saying that, is there a case that Newcastle don't get through? They're only 1-0 up against Southampton. Now, Southampton do have to travel to St James's Park, but ultimately, we're through against Forest, touch wood. Newcastle or Southampton, give me your thoughts.
I want it to be Newcastle, and I want us to mug them off in the final.
Do you want it to be Newcastle for the spectacle of a bigger game, or because Southampton is surely the easier match?
I want it to be Newcastle because their fans are really egotistical at the moment. And just to knock them down a little bit, I think it wasn't we did something similar with Manchester City. I think in 2008, I want to say. Was it the League Cup?
We beat them in the League Cup in 2009-10.
9-10, that was the one.
With the
so, like, and they were starting, right? And that was the big one for City. I think there's a bit of similar feeling. I want Newcastle to make the final, and I want us to absolutely bitch slap them out of it.
I don't care how we beat them in the final. As I said, I'll take Casemiro bundling one over the line in the 89th minute and then going absolutely nuts. But Who knows? Time will tell. But that is at the end of the month, or end of February, I should say. Actually, on my birthday, or the day after my birthday. So fingers crossed we have a good end of the month and Erik ten Hag can lift a trophy. But enjoyed that, Larry. Obviously good discussing a Manchester United win and the FA Cup. Obviously good to progress. Thank you everyone in the live chat. Plenty of different opinions, swayed our thoughts on the 3-2-1s, which is good. Hopefully everyone did enjoy that. If you are new, hit subscribe. Plenty of content coming this week. Larry, always enjoyable.
Tom, we are...
Actually, before you start there, get your point here. Keep that fresh in your mind. Colbert here. Colin Lacey in the youth team. The boys know how to pass. This 15-year-old kid, this left foot on this kid, he's 15-year-olds playing in the under-18s. Yeah. He's a player. Now, obviously, the first reaction when you do see him, his size, the way he plays, you think Phil Foden. This is the new Phil Foden. My God, if he's 15 doing that in the 18s, now obviously he's not going to feature this season for the first team. But my God, he does look potentially. Now, we obviously know very special players do come through the academy. However their career turns out is up to them. But it'll be a few years before we do see him. But my God, he does look a player.
We are 22 subs away from 1,500 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed, help us.
We need that by the League Cup final. We need 1,500 by.
We need it by the League Cup final. I want it in the next 2 minutes. I'm asking too much, people. Come on.
Ambitious. But it would be good. It would be great to reach 1,500 subscribers by this time next month. Fingers crossed that is the case, and you'll have a trophy to celebrate. But until then, hopefully everyone did enjoy it. Please do leave a like on the video on your way out, and we'll be back. Actually, probably this will be my favourite preview. Probably is Nottingham Forest preview coming up in the next day or two. You get Kobe Mainoo, Garnacho will start. We'll be interested in I think Brandon. Maybe David De Gea doesn't start. Maybe Jack Butland sort of gets his new Man United shirt freshly ironed. So it will be a definite good preview to stay tuned for. So hit subscribe. And Larry, I'll chat to you then.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.